You can read the books, you can wear the t-shirts, you can put up the posters, and you can shout the slogans. But unless you know all the facts, you are just trivializing the entire struggle. On to Viv, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Hi, hello, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Misadventures of the Mind podcast, hosted by me. Honestly, at this point, I shouldn't even introduce myself because you should know me. You should know my voice. You should know the cadences. You should know this intro. But in case you are new here, in case this is your very first episode, maybe you heard of this podcast from a friend or a friend of a friend, or you maybe stumbled upon it on one of the social media platforms because I am everywhere. You're welcome. Hi, hello. It is I, Aliaska Lake Nadal, your favorite clinical child and adolescent psychologist from Aruba. Shout out to the 297 Island. Shout out to this podcast, to be honest, where we talk about mental health, obviously. We talk about life, because of course, and we talk about everything in between, because it's confusing. So, on this here's podcast, on this episode, we literally talk about everything over and under the sun. And on today's episode, I'm going to talk about none other than the Black experience because, hello, we're still in February, aka Black History Month. So I felt like I should do my due diligence and inform you on said experiences. So without further ado, without me dragging out this intro like I usually do, I'm gonna get straight into it. And for those of you who know, that means that I'm going straight into the misadventures of the mind of this episode. And like I said, if you're new here, if this is, your first couple of episodes, the misadventure of the mind is something that basically hinders you, it confuses you, it tricks you into thinking a reality that is a little bit skewed and or not real. And on today's episode, the MOTM is one that convinces you that there's no such thing as a collective Black experience. Yep, and I used collective very intentionally, very mindfully, because it is true. It's real. I promise you, I'm not making this stuff up. Trust me. Trust the process. Trust this episode, because I'll get into it. And before I get into it, let me also say that this week, or this episode, is also linked to the digital mental notes that I often post. And the last two that I have, one is The Magic in Melanin, and the other one is titled There Is No One Quite Like You. There's a new one that I'm supposed to post this week at some point, hopefully before Black History Month is over, is titled Being Black is Not Just a Skin Color. And honestly, I might have snatched some edges, but I'm just trying to speak some truth out here. And yeah, you should check it out. And if you don't know, the digital mental notes are basically a short form episode where I just choose a specific topic and affirm you, motivate you, or inspire you. So it's really just a longer version of the affirmation that I do in these regular episodes. But anyhow, let's get back into what I want to talk about today. And that is the quote unquote collective Black experience. So as I said, collective Black experience. But there's a stereotype, I feel like, or a way of thinking whenever people think about being Black or having a collective Black experience. And by the collective Black experience, I'm not talking about slavery, because technically, yes, that is also a shared Black experience that, we all had indirectly, and maybe it directly impacted us and maybe it indirectly impacted us, or maybe not at all. But one way or another, that is something that has some form of impact on the current living people of color. And that is not to say that everyone has shared or has this underlying like trauma, but this is something that happened to a lot of our ancestors, not just in America, but also on the Caribbean islands. What happens is a lot of the slave trade also took a straight shoot course to the ABC Islands and also other islands in the Caribbean. But, like I said, I'm not here to talk about that specifically because that is typically what people think when people of color, Caribbean people, are talking about when they're talking about the Black experience. And a lot of times it's rooted in hatred or sadness and trauma. And I'm here to talk about the joys of being Black, like the joys of being from a community that is melanated, from parents who grew up on the islands, from a island that is like, I don't want to say predominantly, but definitely heavily melanated. So there's a lot of misconception and often jumping to conclusion and stereotypes when it comes to talking about the Black experience, that it's always about hatred and or negative emotions, when it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than just thinking about slavery. Like, there's no way or form that I'm disregarding slavery and everything that happened post slavery, including the civil rights movement, including trying to build up the POC community. But it's not just that, and it's not fair to take the Black experience and only have that be its core memory, have that be its core essence, because it's so much more than that. It's so vibrant, it's so loving and joyous that it's almost a disservice if we're only talking about the negativity of it. And honestly, that's already what media does. The media coverage is so skewed and one-sided and so negative that it almost makes us feel as though we need to conform to that type of lifestyle. And before I get into that, because I want to talk about my experience as a Black Caribbean woman. I'm very intentional and also listen to my words. This is my opinion. This is my views. This is my perspective. Maybe you might have another one. Maybe you might have a different version of the Black experience, and that's perfectly fine. But I'm here to talk about what I've seen and what I experienced. Now, in my experience, the Black experience is like just something that you can't really put into full sentences, just because there's so much like unspokenness and unwritten rules that go into being Black that it's really, really funny. Like, for example, you go to sleep Friday night, you wake up Saturday morning or Sunday, and you're hearing music. You're hearing big tune in the background. You're trying to sleep, but you're hearing the you're just hearing melody, right? You can't really make it out, and sometimes you can. You wake up. What does that mean for my people of color? I'll wait. Correct. That means it's cleaning day. Yes. It means that you also need to wake up and get your room tidy. It means that you need to put your dirty laundry, sort it out, and prep it for when your mother tells you, like, okay, put your clothes in the wash machine. Like, that's something that you can't really explain fully, and it's not something that, is universal. It's Black universal. It's Caribbean universal, but it's not like global, all cultures and ethnicities universal. You know what I mean? So, like with that, like it's just an unspoken rule. There's no way every single generation tells the other generation, like, hey, you know what you need to do as a black person? Put on music on a Saturday and clean the house, and then wake up your children with said music so they also know that that's a cue to clean the house. Like that's not what happens. It's an unspoken, unwritten rule. Next example. Okay, no, actually. Oh my gosh, so this one is really funny because I don't know if it's just my household and my parents, but let me just explain this. Eating your food, eating your vegetables specifically. If you don't eat your vegetables or eat everything off of your plate, what happens? Correct. You'll get a lecture about everyone who is starving in the world, and therefore your parents will guilt trip you into eating all of the food that you don't like, i.e. vegetables. I'm talking about my 8-year-old self. Like, I had such a tough time eating all of my vegetables. I feel like even now, as a grown adult and also vegetarian, I have trouble eating all of the vegetables because I don't like mushrooms. I will chuck them down if I need to. Like if my best friends make something with mushrooms or any other vegetable that I don't like, best believe I'm chucking it down because I love them, as well as my parents. I love them. So I ate everything. Next black experience. What about the word lying or liar? How did your parents and or grandparents feel about you using that word? Correct. You're not allowed to, because how dare a little child say the word liar? Liar. That's not a thing that you say. It's untruth. You're untruthin'. Why? No, liar. Who is a liar? Nobody. No. If you want to end up 6 feet underground, you can go and tell your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, your auntie, your uncle that they're lying or a liar. Trust and believe you'll have the dentist on speed dial because all of your teeth are knocked out. Black experience. And like a lot of people or a lot of people of color, POCs, we joke about getting buried right away after, misbehaving, getting disciplined and stuff like that. And, we laugh about it. And a lot of times people think like, oh my gosh, like people of color and black parents, like they just beat their children. It's like child abuse. I don't know about that. I see it as discipline. Of course, like when I was younger, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally dying. But as like you grow up, like thank God for the discipline that I got, because I am a good noodle. Shout out to SpongeBob. Like, I'm a goofy goober good noodle. Like, yes, thank you, parents, for the discipline that I had received. But again, collective black experience. It's so funny and it's so great. Like, as I'm thinking about this, as I'm talking about this, like, I'm just thinking about all of the fun things that went down as like a child. You're like, you get to play outside, but as soon as the street lights go on and it's dark, like you need to be inside. Like, who street child are you? Like, why are you still outside in the streets? Like, that is not my child no more. And again, collective black experience. Like, when you meet another black person, another person of color, another melanated brother or sister, you automatically do the hey, what's up head nod, and you've literally spoken a full sentence. Like, you literally ask them how was their day, how was their travel getting there. You're good, they're good. You had a full experience with that head nod. What I will say is that I feel like the collective Black experience is different depending where you grew up. Like, we're in terms of either in a Caribbean household or in an American one. There are some similarities between Caribbean and American people of color, but when it comes to like Caribbean people of color, it's like everyone had the same exact childhood. Everyone had the exact same upbringing. Everyone had the exact same rules and regulations within the household. And I think that that is really hilarious. And I find pride in that. And, I'm just gonna go back to the quote because I really, really love that quote. And it's from the TV series, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. If you're not familiar, that's like Will Smith's debut TV show. It had about, I don't know how many seasons, but it had 6 seasons. And that quote was from season 1, episode 17. It's called Ethnic Tip. And it's where Will Smith he had on a Malcolm X shirt. And if you don't know who Malcolm X is, that is one of the activists during the civil rights movement. He's very much renowned for like his glasses. And anyway, Will Smith had on a Malcolm X shirt, and on Viv said, you can read his books, you can wear the t-shirts, you can hang up the poster, and you can shout the slogans, but unless you know all of the facts, i.e. everything that happens within that movement and why he did it and how and what the cost was and the impact, then you are just trivializing the struggle. For my people who don't know what trivializing means, trivialize means relating to or being of something simple. So little worth or importance, of little worth or importance. So if you're trivializing something, then you're making it small. You're reducing it. You're reducing it to something that is unimportant. So I thought that that was a really fitting quote, and I, stumbled upon the clip of that episode, and I thought, wow, that's a perfect quote for this episode, because sometimes people in society trivialize the collective Black experience. Like, they make it little, they make it so unimportant, and they almost minimize it to just something that is about like rap music and drugs and most of the Black men being incarcerated or gang violence. And it's like, no, that is not what that is. That is just literally a small fraction of what happens. But then you also need to look deeper into why it's happening. Like, why are there so many Black men being incarcerated? Why is there so much injustices when it comes to people of color? Now, I said I didn't want to talk about the negative. But sometimes you can't have the positive without a little bit of truth. And sometimes the truth can be a little negative. So I say all that to say, to come back to my initial point, the collective Black experience as per me and my perspective, my experience. Being Black is so deep rooted into community and culture, because it's like, you have these traditions, you have these like common things that give you a sort of like light or like joy. You have a specific lifestyle, you have specific food that you eat during specific times, like Easter, you got your Easter brunch after church. You have, your holiday season. Now in the Caribbean, we don't really celebrate Thanksgiving, but we do have Christmas celebration, and just know and believe that we throw down during Christmas, okay? Like, especially my family, like the Lakes, Boxing Day, Christmas holiday party. Hey, just know we're kind of infamous for that. You got the mac and cheese, you got the ham, you got the chicken, you got the potato salad, you got the coleslaw sometimes. You know, my mom likes to switch it up sometimes and add like new stuff. Like, what did she make the last time that was like smacking? It was like a cucumber. I don't know what it was, but it was like a cucumber thing with like soy sauce or something like that. It was delicious. Threw down. And you got the snacks, of course. Coming from a Caribbean household, you have like deviled eggs, you have pigs in a blanket, you got the, in Papiamento we call it pasapalo, which is basically like skewers with cheese and ham and olives and onion. It's a whole thing. Like, you gotta be there to get it. Like, you know, you just gotta be there. And if you don't get it, I'm so sorry. Maybe you'll be invited to the cookout. But you know, that's a part of the collective Black experience. Now, last thing before I move on, something that is also unfortunately a part of the collective Black experience is being super competitive when we're playing board games. Like, it gets so loud and it gets so crazy and chaotic, and that chaos is part of the joy of the Black experience. Because how are you going to add a +4 on a +2 that's not the same color? I'm talking about Uno. Everybody has their own Uno house rules. Like, collective Black experience. Like, what are your house rules? That's the first question when you go into someone's house and you're playing a game. You have dominoes. Like, hey, listen, you gotta know how to play. Otherwise, you can't play. You have regular cards. In the Caribbean, we used to play knuckles or knocks. Depends, you know, what generation you grew up on, knuckles or knocks. That game, listen, your knuckles, your hand knuckles are literally gonna be bloodied, cut up, everything. Collective Black experience. It's so great. I didn't even talk about the hair. Like, the collective Black hair experience. Like, listen, I feel like I should just create a whole episode about Black hair. I won't, but I should. But hair, man, there's so much history actually in hair and braids. And, you know, side eye for corporate companies talking about like, oh, your hair should be professional. What do you mean my afro isn't professional? What do you mean if I have out my curls that's not professional? What do you mean if I have braids in my hair that's not professional? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, clearly you want me to conform to a stereotype and a life that is not of me. Like, that's not my life. That's not my lifestyle. That's not my community. So no, I will not straighten my hair and put it up in like a bun or whatever. Slick back. Like, I can put my afro in a slick back bun with gel. Collective Black experience. But that doesn't mean that it automatically became professional or maintained or I tamed my hair. Like, microaggressions. That's all I'm hearing. Microaggressions. And unfortunately, that's also part of the collective Black experience. Luckily, I work at a place where different hairstyles, my very versatile hairstyle and my very versatile hair is celebrated as opposed to questioned and or judged. So, you know, if you're feeling judged at your job, you know, like, maybe it's time to take it up to HR or move. Like, I feel like part of my Black experience is also finding the joy in the different hairstyles that I have. Like, if I'm having a bad hair day, like, my whole day is ruined. Like, don't talk to me, don't look at me, don't say anything to me. But if I'm having a good hair day, let me know. Okay, like, I'm not gonna say I took a long time to do it, because sometimes I do just take like 10 minutes and then I'm done, I'm out the door. But sometimes, you know, like, I put in that extra effort and that extra like gel to make it look a little cute. Like, the curl needs to pop. Like, sometimes it looks a little dry, so I add some oil. And that's also, I feel like, a part of collective Black experience, using more than 2 hair products. Sometimes people get it and sometimes they have questions, and that's fair. Healthy curiosity is fine. But then again, like, don't ask me how my hair grew overnight because I have it in braids now. Like, it's a stupid question, respectfully. Like, move away from me with that stupid question. I will not answer. And no, you can't touch my hair. Get away from me. That's my take on the collective Black experience. And I also touched up on the media and media portrayal, because that's also like a thing that is just so backwards and they're so stereotyped, like it's so annoying. But luckily nowadays, especially I want to say in the last 10 years or so, like our media coverage, our media representation, the types of movies, TV shows, and music, especially the movies and TV shows that are coming out, are centered around Black people and the Black experience without having to talk about trauma. Like, one of my favorite, I guess, sitcom form TV shows from the last 10 years is called Blackish. And if you know it, listen, yay for you, because that's a good show. And if you don't know it, highly recommend. Like, it's so funny, and also it just touches up on a lot of things that come up as a Black person, a person of color. Now, granted, it is American based, so a lot of those things are specific to the United States of America, but it doesn't take away the fact that these are some of the things that universally, globally, people of color experience. So if you have time to check it out, check it out. Another one that I really, really, really love, because it's so funny and it's like a fun girl time television show, is Insecure by Issa Rae. Like, I was there when she had Awkward Black Girl YouTube series, and then it like moved on to like big time television, and now she's just doing everything under the sun. Love that for her. And also highly recommend watching Insecure. And then there's like a ton of other movies, and there's like a lot of directors and producers: Shonda Rhimes, Spike Lee, there's New Age Jordan Peele. So good, so funny, so like the movies are so well thought out. I'm here for all of it. And I took some time to look up because I was wondering how to, inform you and bring a little bit of history. And I did talk about Malcolm X because, he was a pillar in the Black experience, especially during the Civil Rights Movement, as well as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. These are all people who represented something, or like a turning point in history. You have Rosa Parks, you have Harriet Tubman, you have all of these Black people of the past. And recently there is one man by the name Carter G. Woodson, and he is also a pillar in Black history, specifically again for people in America, because he is the creator of the NAACP, and the NAACP stands for National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and it is noted as a civil rights organization formed in 1909 as an interracial endeavor to advance justice for African Americans. And what happens is that right after segregation, where, especially in America, there was a clear divide between what people of color were allowed to do and what spaces they were allowed to be a part of. And in even at school, at universities, there were colored people who weren't allowed to quote unquote mix with the other white people or other people at school. So what Carter G. Woodson did, and what the NAACP stood for is to create a space specifically for Black people and the advancement of not just their education, but also of their social statuses. In the month of February, back then it was called the Negro History Week. And that was a week where they would have events and different groups and rallying to bring light to the people of color in history, but also shedding light on the spaces that we take up and we're allowed to be in. And back then, it was also called the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. So it was really about learning about our history as people of color. Again, specifically, that was in America. So, there are a little bit of differences and discrepancies between the history or the Black history in America versus the Black history in and around the Caribbean. But from 1926, it grew and continued growing, and it then became so big that they said, like, why do we just have a week? Like, we should have a full month. And the reason why they chose February specifically is because both Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass both had birthdays in February. So they felt like it was only right to commemorate these people who fought for people of color, to celebrate their fight as well as our future in the month of their birth. And what I really loved about reading up on the founder of the NAACP, Mr. Carter G. Woodson, as well as everyone that came after, created a space for people of color not to be ignored, but to be celebrated, to be feeling like they're a part of a community, feeling like they can amount to something and their worth isn't just in like, oh, you're going to the NBA or you're gonna be like a linebacker in the NFL. Like, no, like you can be a scholar, you can be a poet, you can be a musician, you can be an artist, you can be a scientist, you can be anything you think you can do and also more. So, I say all of that to say, again, like, representation is so important, and the collective Black experience is filled with so much joy and happiness, even though sometimes it might come with like a struggle. It's so beautiful despite all of the hardship and ridiculous questions that are asked, despite all of the microaggressions. I don't want to make it too long, so I'm gonna end it right here. But I do have a question for my fellow loyal listeners, specifically my fellow melanated, my fellow Black, my fellow Caribbean, my fellow West Indian listeners. Are you proud of your Blackness? Do you acknowledge your worth, your value, the royalty of your skin, your experience, and your culture? Because if you don't, or if you ever doubt it, I'm just here to say that you should remember that being Black is not just about your skin color. It's so much more than that. It's really about the joy in the community, the joy in the collective Black experience. Yeah. But anyhow, this was a good episode. This was a fun one. This was a necessary one. This one was one that came from passion, from within myself. Because, we didn't really dive into the mental health of it all and the type of trauma that comes with it, because like I said, I did want to keep it lightweight and fun and cutesy and mindful and demure. So perhaps I'll have to dive into that in another episode, maybe the very next one, because we're still in YS month. So stay tuned for part 2, I guess. Anyway, anyhow, you know how we like to end these episodes with a little bit of positivity to get you through your day, your week, or your weekend. Depends when you're listening to this, of course. And today I would like to start with a little affirmation, and it is as follows. I reject societal standards that don't align with me or my sense of being. I release feelings of shame and guilt around my identity, and I won't allow racism to distract me from my greatness and realizing my worth. And I never, ever forget my Bible readers out there. You know that you're also a part of this community. And today's biblical affirmation can be found in Colossians 3, verse 12. And it goes as such. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. So yes, that is all. That is it. That is all I have to share with you for today, my beautiful, wonderful fellow loyal listeners. I hope that this topic tickled your brain, it informed you, it inspired you, it maybe helped you see things in and with a different light. And if it did as such, you know what to do. Share it on all things shareable. You can find me on literally all streaming platforms, so you ain't got no excuses. So I implore you, I encourage you, I ask you to share it. Share it with your friends, your family, your colleagues, anyone who you feel like might benefit from listening to this episode or any other episode. And also, discuss it. Share what you thought, share what you agreed with, share it especially what you disagreed with, because we're in the business of growing and developing, and you can only do that with sharing your thoughts and views with each other. So anyway, that is all. That is it. I hope to inform you on another episode, and stay tuned for every week's digital mental note, aka the affirmations. Okay, thanks, bye.